Hello, and welcome to Cafe Edmonton's broadcast yet again on Google Hangouts. I am Monique, your friendly cafe moderator, I guess, or, person that talks to people. And we have it's very exciting today because this is our first broadcast with some actual members from the Fathers' Rights movement. So Cafe, we do a lot of advocating in like all the official routes, I guess, so our institutions and, mainstream media, and we discuss men's issues, but it's kind of hard to always have a good understanding of policy and how we're going to talk about the issues if you don't actually talk to the people that these issues affect, right? So I'm really excited that Cafe Edmonton is having this Google Hangout. So I just want to thank Lloyd and Mike for showing up today to talk to me. So thanks, guys. You want to say hi?
Hey.
Hello. Thanks for having us. Definitely.
No problem at all. And so I'll just get you both to introduce yourself. Mike, do you want to go first? Just like give us a blurb about how you got involved with these issues.
Oh, well, sure. I got involved most men do. I go to a divorce court and I no longer see my kids, and I'm told that 4 days a month is okay, and I get the benefit of also paying for not seeing my kids. And I figured, well, that's wrong, and I'm definitely a purveyor of right and wrong, or of right, pardon me, over wrong, and so I just decided to look into how this happens and why this happens, and through my discoveries, I figured it out, and I figured out how to get out of it, basically.
Awesome.
And how to help others. So that's why, that's why I'm here. That's why I'm around. Is I want to help others get out of it as well.
Mm-hmm. There's a lot of men in your position that, like, once they get through it, they're not interested in staying in what's going on. Like, I guess they're traumatized. They have their personal reasons. So that's very encouraging to see. And so do you have like a nonprofit or like any kind of organized, like something that you've organized to help people directly?
Well, I started I guess a YouTube channel and Twitter. It's called Family Court Cure. And just basically it just explains exactly what we're doing, and it doesn't even stop for fathers, right? I mean, anyone that is in trouble. I mean, I'm not big on helping. I find like most feminists to be hate groups like others, so I'm not big on helping any hate groups. But I definitely am there to help people. Like, for example, you guys are trying to do a men's shelter, and so helping to fundraise that would be great too. Yeah. Anyhow.
Okay. And you're from Calgary?
I am from Calgary. Yes.
Okay. And Lloyd, what can you tell us a little bit about your background and how you got into these issues?
Well, I guess I followed the same path as Mike. My wife left with my daughter, and I've been battling an unfair system for the last few years, and I just wanted to get more involved. Like, I reached out and I found these groups on Facebook, and I joined them, and I found that they were a great resource for getting help, advice, and support from others. And at the same time, if I had information that I could pass on, or just friendly words to keep somebody else motivated, that's what I felt that the groups were meant for. And I just wanted to get more involved in it. So just a week ago, they had asked for other volunteers if anybody else had time to help out with the admin and editing of the stuff going up. And I said, well, how can I help? And so, this is me a week into being a co-admin on the group.
So which group is that you're part of?
Fathers' Rights Canada and Fathers' Rights Ontario.
Okay. Yeah. So we have a fairly big FRAC group. We call it FRAC here in Alberta, Fathers' Rights Alberta Canada. So that's like the local one. But Sean, he's the lead admin of that, and I believe he's on the Canada group as well.
Right. So he invited me in.
Yeah, and I would imagine, like, from your guys' perspective, that you must feel like when you're actually, completely institutionalized like that in the family court and being railroaded, it must be very validating when you actually hear that you're not going crazy and you're not the only one.
Oh, exactly. Yeah. When you realize, but it's also disturbing too at the same
Yeah,
time.
yeah.
Like, when you realize that, wow, there's so many people that are going through this same thing. It's good. It feels good in a way that you're not alone, but at the same time, it's like, wow, there's so many people going through this. This is really a problem. This is not a one
Oh
of situation. This is huge.
yeah. Oh yeah. Like it's not just Canada either. Like it's the entire Western world.
That's
And yeah, so there is something very weird going on. But yeah, like that's one reason why I got involved initially is like first of all, it does feel better to be with other people, so you don't feel like you're like completely nuts. And then also, you're right that you feel like you have to take action and actually do something about it. So that's why we started to collect, right? So I guess a question I have is, what do you think? Like, what kind of like 'cause cafes organize, like we're aware of we're aware of the issues, and so that's like the biggest step. But what would be some services that you think would help, that would actually be realistic that cafe could implement? So one idea I had was having a shelter and trying to do some fundraising. So we have a similar shelter, a branded shelter, the same as cafe, but for fathers' rights, or for family court, like what is one concrete step that we could take in the right direction? So I'll start with Mike if you have a suggestion.
Well, that's a very that's a very large can of worms that you're going to open with me.
Okay.
Because
Well, just like a first step, what could a regular person do to help?
Oh, yeah. That again, excellent question. I'm I work in
We have to start somewhere.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I the best way that I can explain what I do is, or what we do is accounting and administration, right? So the most important thing is to explain why, I think, is to explain why there is a thing called family court, why it's there, what it actually is there for, and it's not for the children, and so that when people go into family court, they realize right off the bat that it's one giant sham, and it's all it is. All family court is, just like anything else, is fundraising for corporate Canada, and that Canada are basically, oh geez, I'm not sure where to start with this, right? So it's just making sure that they understand. So basically, whenever you pay, let's just say when you pay child support, or you're given child support, the reason why it's not balanced, or we'll never see 50-50, is because that money needs to go through the CRA, right? So you get a child support order, you have to pay $1,000 a month. That $1,000 goes through MEP to the CRA, and the CRA then makes $400 out of that, well, in tax credits, right? And those tax credits are used to fund social programs, or what we call the welfare state. And
so to summarize, I'm just going to move on to Lloyd.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, because I'll just keep going. Totally.
Yeah, I know. I'm going to ask you some more questions, but I just want to get Lloyd's perspective on this too. Like, so Lloyd, what do you think would be a first step? So summarize. It sounds like what Mike's saying is just tell people like what's actually going on, so they're not caught off guard when they actually go to family court.
There we go.
Well, that is really the main step. Is the general public needs to be aware of what happens. The only people that have had their eyes open are ones that have either gone through it, or a family member has gone through it. Most people either don't know or don't want to know about the injustices of the family court system.
So how can that be true when, like, my next question is how can that be true when, like, the divorce rate isn't low? Like, there's a lot of people that go through a divorce. So how come so many people don't know about this? And, like, it is definitely an industry, like high conflict divorces. Like, clearly, like, Canada, like the revenue, our GDP is going to go up with more high conflict divorces. And whether that's uncomfortable to say or not, that's actually true. Like, whether that's good for the children or not, that's high conflict divorces, like, make some people more money. So,
well, absolutely. It is it's a money making vessel for the lawyers and the other pawns, I guess, in the game. It's nobody like I said, it's either they don't know or they don't want to know or they don't want to admit that there's a problem until it's affecting them or a family member in one way or another. As I've talked to many people since my struggle began, and they all start off with the same, preconception, like, oh, well, isn't this just the way it is? Well, this is really what's happened to me. Oh my God, are you kidding? Wow, how can that happen that way? And yet, once they learn what the truths are, they're almost speechless.
Mm-hmm. So we have a new guest also. We have the lovely Catherine stepping in, and she's part of my community here in Edmonton. So I got the two guys on here to talk a little bit about their background and how they got into this. Do you want to fill us in on yourself, Catherine? Just give us a little bit of background. Oh, we can't hear you. Do you have your microphone turned on?
Hey, how's it going?
Hey, how's it going?
Okay, cool. Good. Thank you very much, Monique. I'm directly gotten involved in the last couple of years in men's rights due to a lengthy last 13 years of my life dealing with it. I'm a stepmom and an aunt of alienated children for the last 12 years. So currently my stepson is an adult now, so he has all the freedom he has with his father, but we waited a really long time for that. And currently I'm dealing with my brother is going through a 5-year divorce. And
oh God.
Yeah. So it's just been really messy, but this is my way to cope and do something because it needs to change. You know what I mean? So
yeah, well, certainly when you start doing something, like for me, I certainly feel better, like because you feel like you're not just like a leaf in the wind anymore.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, so I asked our two guys here, like, what would be a concrete step that regular people could do to, how do we help people? And Mike said that, yeah, does anybody have a fan on? Sounds like a little bit of air brushing around.
Hold on.
It's very hot in Edmonton. I had to turn mine off here.
Yes, it is.
Yeah, Mike says one way we can get, like, we can help break, like, like an average person can do something about this would be to just explain like family court to more people, like just so they know that they don't get they'll be railroaded, but at least they know it's coming, so they won't be totally caught off guard. So maybe explaining these issues to more people and be more verbal about it, I suppose.
Well, to be more specific, it's why it exists, right? It's fundraising. It's fundraising for corporate Canada. It has nothing to do with the children.
No, that's not. Yeah, it's something to do with the money that's to be made from high conflict divorces. Like the more you engage a lawyer, obviously the GDP goes up, right?
Well, it's not just that. It's mainly the funds, because sure, the lawyers get paid, right? Because they're for sure giving a service, but it's the child support alimony that goes through the CRA or MEP to the CRA, because MEP is just a collector, or to put it more bluntly, a tax collector for the CRA, and then the CRA creates tax credits out of that. So basically making $100 into $400, or that's pretty much that's why it exists. And
there has to be some sort of like impulse that makes us kind of geared towards this way, because I'm trying to do lots of fundraising for men's issues and it's very difficult, whereas feminism, for example, is like a multi-billion-dollar industry if you consider slut walks, walk a mile in her shoes, anything to do with like gender studies programs. It's extremely lucrative.
Yeah, well, actually, family court, I call the Family Act the Gender Studies Act, because that's pretty much what it is, right?
Yeah, and it's based on very shrill minorities ideology rather than any sort of like empirical evidence, that's for sure.
Exactly. And that's actually what we're doing, what makes it pretty powerful too, because the Family Act is all about fundraising. When you work with us, we defund the Family Act and give it to other give funds to other programs. So for example, guys who are guys who will work with us, or pardon me, people with these family court judgments, right? Oh my goodness, I don't know where to start. What I should have done was written something down so that I'd have a nice coherent thought. Wouldn't that be great?
Well, I'm interested in hearing about your organization. So can you repeat the YouTube channel that they can go to learn this process that you've developed
Sure.
or you've discovered, I guess. So yeah, they can go on your website and then get informed. You don't have to go into specifics here since you probably already have documented this on your YouTube. Basically, men or women, like you're not discriminating between anybody who's been railroaded in with family courts.
Right.
I've seen it happen to women sometimes.
Yeah, definitely.
It's definitely men are the majority that you see these issues happening, but it happens to women. And so they can go to your website or your YouTube channel, and then you will teach them the process so that they can work the system so that the funds that they have to deposit, that they're obligated to deposit, will be distributed more.
One sec, because you put a lot of words in my mouth there. So,
okay.
So yeah, go to it's just called Family Court Cure. It's on Twitter and it's on YouTube. And yeah, there's some quick videos in there. There are some change because we just started about 2.5 months ago, so the video is a little outdated. That's right now. And so there are a few changes that are being made in that video, but it's pretty much exactly the same. Yeah, so it's Family Court Cure. And yeah, take a look at the videos, and you'll be amazed at what we do. It's just taking your income tax and rerouting it to help you.
Okay, that sounds very interesting. So how did you discover all this information? Like, did you just research it yourself, or did someone tell you about it, or is this documented somewhere else?
I'm sorry, the feed just quit, so I didn't hear that question.
Oh, I was asking, like, how did you even uncover this information? Because as far as I know, I haven't heard this before. Like, how did you discover the process for this?
Well,
Did someone tell you?
Yeah. Well, I'm part of a group, right? And we're basically uncovering. It was all about uncovering how the system works, and everything is all about profit generation, because Canada is a corporation. And so if you look at your budget, for example, you look at Bill C-73, the fiscal budget, every year they get together and they plan the budget. So, and when that budget goes towards an act, what are acts? Acts are laws. So every single law written in an act has a budget set aside for it. Does that make sense? Right?
Yep.
So yeah, you have a law written. That law, let's say, has let's just say $10,000 to it, right? So if we defund that law that's doing all the damage, then that law can no longer function, because all acts must have financing in order to exist. So we basically defund those laws so that they can no longer run, they can no longer exist.
Okay, that actually makes a lot of sense, actually.
Yeah.
And so I guess what you want to do is kind of like have more people informed about the process to defund the law, so that, like, because there's more people doing it, that would actually put a lot of pressure to have the law no longer exist.
It's people working with us, because unless you know what you're doing, you do not want to tangle with it.
Okay. Anybody else have any pointers they want to say about family law? I have a couple of other issues I want to bring up too, but if there's anything else you want to say about family law.
I just actually have one question. With defunding the law, would push them in a different direction. Would it push them in the direction of changing a law, or just totally just getting rid of it completely?
Good question. Well, if you defund the law for that year, right? Because then next year they'll have a budget for it, so it could get renewed. But what it could do is force them to understand that, oh, people don't want this law to exist, and then it'll force them to change it. That's also assuming that the people that work in family law are human beings and not blood-sucking. Sorry. Anyway, I digress.
All right.
But yeah, pretty much when you defund it every year they redo the budget. So then it's just every year you defund wherever the harm is coming from, right?
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Yeah, so for the family shelter, Cafe is putting up a battered men's shelter for men and their children. And so I guess Karen Strawn summarized it quite well for me when she said that right now, men in Canada and like in the Western world, they have three options when they're being battered. They can stay and take the abuse, they can leave their children with an abuser, or they can risk a child abduction charge. So none of these options are very good. So I don't know if a shelter would be the right way to go about this, but so I want to talk about this because that's one of the reasons why I brought you on here to help me, kind of brainstorm this. So should we have a shelter? First of all, is that the right service for men that are being battered? Or should it be more in the form of a men's peer circle? Or, first of all, what should the service look like? And then if we have a service, like, how would we fund that? Like, how could we fundraise to be effective? So,
well, what about the pride issue, right? I have to go to a shelter.
Exactly.
Dudes with pride, right? And
that's why I asked about
a retreat.
Yeah.
A retreat.
Yeah.
I don't know. Yeah, just changing it from.
Just change the name to a retreat.
Yeah, that was just one word that came to my head, like a retreat, because they're retreating, number one, and number two, they get there and then they can get some services and get some help, right, at the retreat.
Yeah. And, it's very hard for Cafe to implement this service. Like, we're trying to guess, like, we have to just guess, right? Like, because nobody's done really anything like this before. And so once we take the men in, like, what would this, like, what would be the therapeutic services that we offer? And then that doesn't even include the children. Like, how do we, instinctively, I don't really want to have, like, I don't want to play let's blame people. I don't feel like that's going to bring people in to come get help. I don't like this punitive approach that I see in the women's shelters, especially because I've considered the research and it shows that most of the battering is back and forth, and there's something in their personality before they ever met that made them like this. So it's it's not. This isn't like a result of patriarchy or anything like that. It seems like it's more of a personal psychology. And so I don't really see the benefit of the punitive approach. And so that's something that I've wondered about is like once we get them in, like that's a really good idea. Like, don't call it a shelter, call it a retreat. That, even if you have, when you have drug rehab places, you can call them retreat or something instead of
camp. You could, or a camp, retreat, camp. It could be, have something it really close to a lake. Where you can fish. Mm-hmm. Have a beer and fish. I don't know.
And then that sounds like a good idea. Like, do something really manly. And then, but also what about the legal? Like you can put a shelter up, but if it's still illegal for men to take their children.
See, that's where I was going to get at, because so many men will be barred from the house instantly when they leave. Instant false accusations, giving the mother upper hand for emergency temporary custody orders.
Yeah.
So how do the men get through that? Do they have to be the deviant, sneaky one to wait for her to go to work or to go shopping and pack up the kids and leave? Right.
Yeah.
See, that's traumatic when mothers do it to their kids. So that's where I was getting at. I was like, how is that going to work? You know what I mean?
Yeah, that's why we're having this discussion, so that I can start thinking about these issues, because I'm very serious about trying to start something here. I know there's a problem and I have to do something, but actually how to implement it, this is not going to be simple. And I'm mostly concerned about, I don't want the fathers to leave without their children. I don't want the fathers to leave. And if they're both battering each other, then the children need proper thelapy, intervention. And I remember Erin Pissy saying that when she started her women's shelter in the 1970s, she was considered a criminal, and she was, sheltering women. And I just don't see me getting, or anybody in Cafe getting that same kind of support from the, the public if we'd have a men's shelter about, if the authorities decide that we're doing something illegal. I don't people don't have the same kind of sympathy for men, and I don't know how we would push back
again if they say they're doing something illegal, you have to get that written down on paper so you could see exactly what they're saying, right? Mm-hmm. So then then you look at what law that they're saying this is illegal, and then you break it down from there, right? And yeah,
child abduction, I guess, would be one, and everything, the way that the domestic abuse, like, it's based on the Duluth model, which is based on the clearly incorrect idea that men beat women because they're patriarchal. Like, it's a little more complicated than that, obviously, domestic abuse. So so when you're starting off from like the wrong model to begin with, then trying to work in reality is very difficult. And so I want to figure out, like, how can I have a retreat, I guess, like a fishing, camping retreat for men with their children, so that the child can leave, and then the man will get therapy, and hopefully the woman, likely if it's just one way unilateral, if the woman's beating the man or hitting him with pots or breaking things or burning
Whatever.
him, he can leave. But we'd have to have like some sort of vetting service when we actually accept the men. And I would want it to be, like I said, non-punitive, like not pointing fingers, and just get to the facts and then start come up with some solutions per individual for their family.
Well, have you thought of contacting any of the new shelters that are being built out east? There's apparently, I believe there's one going to be finished of this year in Ottawa for men's shelter, specifically for fathers. And of course, the one in Toronto, I believe it's already open. Could we possibly... Is it through Cafe?
Yeah, the main one in the one that we have right now, Cafe has something called the Canadian Centre for Men and Families, and there's 3 of them. There's one in Cafe, in Toronto. There's one in Ottawa, and then there's one in Calgary. And they're actually not overnight shelters though, so they're just like service centers. We offer it's a service center, and actually Edmonton has one too, but we don't have any money for a physical location, so we offer a CCMF. We call it the CCMF, the Canadian Centre for Men and Families, the CCMF in Edmonton. And so we've already been taking emails. So it's a virtual center. We've been taking emails from men in Edmonton and area for all kinds of reasons, like domestic abuse. And so we can't offer a shelter, but we can believe them, and like that actually is a big thing. Like a lot of the men that contact us at our virtual center have never been believed in their life. They've been dismissed. Yep. And so if that's all I can do for them for now, like I guess that's better than nothing. And so we'd like to, we have our cafe so what we're gonna do in Toronto is we're fundraising right now. I believe they're about $300,000, which is a lot for men's issues.
What?
$100,000 for Toronto.
Okay, have them contact me.
Yeah, so we are putting up a shelter, and so the CCMF will no longer be in the it'll be merged with the shelter, basically, the new building that they're going to have in Toronto. So it'll be a shelter plus a CCMF, like a service center.
Okay.
And the one in Toronto, like I said, we have one in Ottawa that's not a shelter; it's just a CCMF. And then the one we have in Calgary is run by Dr. Dan McKinnon, and it is donated from a psychology clinic. It's just an office space that they have once a week for men's drop-in, and they have adjusted kind of social services for men that work better for men, like this, the model that men need. So men don't really like to, sit around, talk about their feelings and like get all gushy. They're more like, okay, like what can I do as a tribute? So for example, they would have something more action based, and men's peer circles are great. Like they'll have a space, like a men's peer circle, where these men sit around in a circle and they just kind of like do their bro thing. And when there's no women around, the dynamic is right for men to start talking about like what's really going on. The bravado comes down, like they can just talk to another guy about, there's no women to impress, so they can just talk about like frankly what's going on, right? So so that works, the men's peer circle. And then they and also in Edmonton, I believe they have so we've been referring some men to men's sheds, which is basically a bunch of guys sitting in a shed. It's like a workshop, and so they'll be doing something like interacting, doing something tangible, but conversation comes up that way, and there's no women around, so the dynamic is right for them to talk about what the issue is with them. And so that's some of the services, like the kind of services that we would recommend to our CCMFs, basically. So we have it's not a just same service that we give to women. It's more like how can we help men facilitate that in a way that they're going to accept, basically.
Well, Monique, one of the things that I'm doing here in Calgary, and I want to bring it up as well, is called, if somebody has their mic, you may need to have a headset on or something like that. Lloyd, it might be you. If you, it's just echoing back. I apologize. It's just.
How is that now? Better?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, I do like the sound of my own voice, but no, okay. No, all right, so what I'm doing here in Calgary for fundraising for Father's Rights is I want to do drams for dads and just do a Scotch tasting, right? I want to sell, get 100 tickets going, and do that up in Edmonton too, so that we can get some fundraising. And what I'm going to do with the money generated from there is I'm going to do exactly what I told you earlier, is I'm going to take, let's say it's 100 tickets. We're going to be selling them at $75 each. The actual value, if you go out into Scotch tasting, it's about 120, 125. So we're selling them at 75. So if we sell 100, that's 7,500. Then what we're going to do is we're going to take those funds and then use them through the government, just like we'll pick something that we can utilize within the laws, and then we will invest in there into the government, and then bring out and basically double those funds in tax credits.
Okay.
So you'll get we'll create, oh my goodness, we'll create a grant of 7,500. And then we'll create tax credits of 7,500, therefore creating 15,000 for that one Scotch tasting, and then the next one, the exact same thing. So all of a sudden, that's $30,000 that we've raised for fathers, and that's kind of.
I was going to put out one project. I was going to put it out there so that you know about it. That Cafe Edmonton's doing. We are flying in. Don Wright from BC. He is out in Western Canada. He's in Vancouver, and he has a nonprofit for male survivors of sexual assault, which is very important because the services in Alberta for men that are victimized by his nonprofit's for male domestic abuse victims too. So we are bringing him to Edmonton in August for like a seminar, an educational seminar, and we plan to bring in doctors, psychologists, and social workers and people from FRAC, from Father's Rights Alberta Cafe. And so it's basically, he's going to share his knowledge about treating male victims. And so we feel like this will be a way to supplement like services in Alberta and therefore improve them. And we can work with the system basically. So we're planning to do that like at NATE, possibly like have an educational seminar. There's some costs that we're trying to cover. We had a large grant go to Cafe Calgary, and they're going to be covering a lot of our charges, but we're still trying to raise about $14,000 for his speaking fees. So I'm just putting that out there. That's what we're trying to raise money for right now in Cafe Edmonton for Don Wright.
And that's you're talking about the August.
Yeah, the August.
For August. Yeah, that's okay.
So yeah, like if anybody wants to donate to that, we sure would appreciate if you can help us cover his speaking fees. And he's worth it. Like he is a human rights award-winning kind of guy. So we need his skills here to improve our services in Alberta. So that would be a legit way that you can help improve our services and raise awareness of how to help male victims, because they are different than female victims, and the services need to be adjusted for men, just like the domestic abuse situation. Like the services that were for women and mental health services for women are not going to work for men, so we have to bring in specialists so that we can adjust our services accordingly.
For sure. Well,
Monique, can you send me your cafe website information?
Yeah, I'll post that. So we're recording this right now, and so we'll after this Google Hangout, I will post all that information, and I'll send you guys information about everything that we talk about today.
Okay, cool.
Yeah. Okay,
thank you.
Yeah. So yeah, back to the very complicated issue of shelter. Like that's working in the system. Like how do we help these men take their children remove their children the same way we would help a woman that's, being battered. How would we help a man legally in the system right now? Like, he would be the one that's considered a criminal, just because the clear discrimination,
Well, with everything, there'd have to be evidence, right? So we'd have to teach them how to gather that evidence, if something is happening, and that is definitely something that would be very important, because you can't just go by someone's word, right? It
feels like the system is based on someone's word, though, like, because women can file a false EPO, and then that guy is like pretty much like, you can't get rid of it anymore.
Yeah. Oh, I know. Yeah. I was accused of sitting outside of a car waiting to stab my ex, and luckily I was with the doctor at the time that this whole thing was supposed to happen, so it was dropped. But yeah, no, like, I totally understand, like, how. It cost me $4,000 to get it dropped.
Yeah, like, if you don't have $4,000, then, like, this is just, yeah. So yeah, we have Men Content Care Virtual Center, as I mentioned, and like, we're doing the best that we can, but a lot of the problems are just legal, like this legal corruption. And
that's something that's very hard to combat.
But I have to think about it if I'm going to have a men's retreat for battered men. We have to think about it.
The only answer that I came up with is to defund the laws, because that's the only concrete way to change things.
Okay.
But anyhow,
if we don't have an answer today, that's okay, because we put the question out there, and now everybody's, the wheels are turning, and we can start thinking about it, right?
Well, some of the major challenges that I see going forward with this is one, getting the men to use it. We discussed the pride issue already. It's dealing with that stigma, but it is still a necessary thing, because until there are shelters available, nobody's going to use them. And once we can get people to use them, we start to validate what we've been saying all along, that there is a need for it, and it's not just a one-sided argument the way that the media and the general public would like to believe it is. So it's getting that first step. Once the shelter is there, is trying to get people to use it and not feel like they're going to be made fun of, or the stigma that would kind of go along with it, right?
Yeah. There is a video that Farrell put out. Like, he's the founder of ECMAS here in Edmonton, the Equitable Child Maintenance and Access Society, and he just showed a video, like, what actually happens, kind of like an actor's kind of a dramatic, whatever you want to, like, a circumstance, and that actually helped, like, just seeing how it goes down in a household when there's an abusive woman, and like, you can see that the man is getting plates thrown at him and the child is getting hurt. And so I find that video is a good way to kind of just tell the story about what's going on, and people see that it's nothing to laugh about.
Education tools, yeah.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. The Red Pill movie, I thought, was excellent. Like, explained the circumstances of the man having to go out into the yard when his wife was throwing things, because he was afraid that the neighbors would think that he was doing it, and why wouldn't they? Because that's what they've been told, right? Like, all the media would show you. And so I think showing, like, like, having stories. I'm a writer, so I tell stories, but like, finding a way to kind of humanize it so that you can actually see the person in the situation. And because a lot of times people have a hard time wrapping their mind around it, because they think that a man is bigger, so how could that even be happening? But if you think about it, if you kind of humanize it, you see that the man often doesn't want to hit back. He's actually afraid of hitting the woman, and he just feels stuck, like he doesn't know what to do. Like, you can show the legal circumstances, all the roadblocks that he can't take his children without being, arrested, or and you show that he's afraid to call the cops because he's going to be arrested.
It really, it's hard for me, because that particular topic that we're on, it's very multi-layered for me, because I'm very strong in believing that a lot of the behavioral between men and females in our society now stems down from the male do not hit and females need to protect themselves. But
Okay.
for some reason, that strayed away from the women. Okay, I feel that men in our economy have become very strong, very simple individuals in the sense where they don't need to beat their wives anymore. They don't need to hit. They don't need to. But when they're being pushed and cornered, you know what I mean? Like, a man has that ability to be stronger. But at the same time, where have we forgotten to teach our females the same respect? You know what I mean? It's like it flipped. And I feel that we need to change how we teach females and males in schools. I don't know where to start, honestly, but basically it's very multi-layered for me, because I've thought long and hard how it's changed. You know what I mean? I came from a father that taught me to protect myself, but he also taught me to have respect and equality. You know what I mean? So
it wasn't just you protecting yourself, but also accountability. And David Shackleton has said many times that feminism, for women, it has all the compassion but no accountability. And the way that feminism treats men is they have all accountability on men but no compassion.
Yeah.
That's a good way to put it, actually.
Yeah. So yeah, but that's like a bigger cultural questions. I mean, like at Cafe, we don't really bring up feminism for a few political reasons, but it's totally saturated all our institutions, our education system, and brainwashed people to have no accountability for women, which is very unhealthy, and it doesn't actually help women to have no accountability. Like that, it just makes you, it makes you sick, and it's no way to treat other people, and you can't have a healthy relationship with anybody. And then this brutality,
narcissism. It develops narcissism.
Yeah, and this brutality of how we treat, this inhumanity and this brutality of how we treat men and boys, you know, it's not civil.
No, I believe that there is a certain level of difference between male and female, and that we should allow boys to be boys and allow girls to be girls, and also allow individuality. You know what I mean?
Oh yeah.
And I find that there's generations of hordes of one thinking of either, like, for instance, feminism. You know what I mean? Or people who like to conjugate in these negative balls of nothingness. They're not even fighting for anything real. They're fighting for things that have been fought 45, 50 years ago. Like, you know what I mean? Like, have they forgotten and respected what our ancestors did as females? You know what I mean? Like, I do respect feminine movements, feminist movements, but to a point. Like, I look at the ones that were effective, not the ones that are weak and a bunch of complainers. Like, I don't know.
Yeah.
I try and stay off the feminist route because I can't get along with them. So
I don't like any kind of ideologue. Like anybody that sees no nuance in humanity and individuals, I don't have any interest in there. But you know, when you talk to these, like, I find that feminism is a type of religion because it's based on something that's not empirical. The reason why they're so attached to those kind of like ideological frameworks is because they feel like it's part of their identity. They've internalized it. And so it's like a religious person, if you confront them with evidence that what they're doing is actually like wrong or incorrect or factually incorrect, I get the same kind of reaction from, you know, any kind of strong ideologue. And it's very hard to debunk them, especially when they're in power and they have like control over our lives and over the laws and our institutions. It's unbearable, and it's hard to believe that that's actually happening in Canada, but it is. Like, if you consider, like, Justin Trudeau is a feminist, and he has very staunch views on some things. He's not going to bend.
Oh, well, that's actually, let's have some fun facts about Justin Trudeau. Okay. Did you all know that Justin Trudeau came from a broken family after his dad was no longer prime minister? They divorced, and he came from a single father family.
No, I didn't know that.
His mother was a drunk and a slut. Okay, so to put it lightly, okay, I'm not saying that was written factual, but how it's outlined, Justin Trudeau came from a family of 3 kids, and their dad, they lived with their dad. He was the primary parent. So it boggles me how he could just be like this hardcore feminist. His mom was a slut and a drunk and didn't care about them.
I have a question for you. Do you think that he's a feminist for political, for political benefit, or does he actually believe in it?
No, I don't. I absolutely do not believe he actually knows anything about feminism, and that he's taking advantage of the masses. That's it.
Okay, so like virtue signaling. That's what it's called, virtue signaling, so that you're look like the good guy, just telling people what they want to hear.
Of course, yeah. And his father was the same damn way. Mm. Okay, so it's not skipping any generations with that family. Okay, yeah. But I've done my fair amount of sharing. I had a friend who was a minister for Indian Affairs in Ottawa for 2 years for the Liberal government. Mm. I'm quite close friends with her. She works with the Indigenous Murderous Indigenous Women of Canada's Association in Ottawa now. And I've spent many hours speaking about Justin Trudeau and his little whiny baby campaign of losers that are all pretty much like young people of fathers of ministers and unqualified people running the Liberal government underneath his shoes. And it's pathetic. It's pathetic. But anyways, we're getting off topic. Yeah, no, because
I have another question for all three of you, if you want to pipe in about this, about actually Indigenous. Did you know that Cafe has, we work with someone called Adam Jones, and he has tried to, we've tried to put forward motions to include men and boys in the murdered and missing Indigenous, because actually when you look at the actual numbers, from Adam Jones research, about 75 to 80% of murdered and missing Indigenous is actually male. And so all this political movements about, we're very, this virtue signaling, but we're all very pro-Indigenous because we care about all these murdered and missing women, which is very nasty, of course. I'm not condoning, killing, but why wouldn't we, if we're going to do an inquiry, then why wouldn't we include the men and boys that are being murdered and missing? Why make it even gendered? If it's going to be gendered, it should be gendered towards the males because there's more of them. So we don't actually hear about that in the media. And when we try to include, we were shut down viciously by feminist ideologues, and so there won't be any funding for men and boys, basically, in these murdered and missing Indigenous. So if you have any comments or questions about that, you have something to say?
Actually, okay. Well, you know what? I never thought of that. Yeah. I talk to my girlfriend all the time. Her name is Tanya Lalonde. She's a wonderful lady. You know what? I never even thought about that. You know what? I'm going to put my 2 cents in. I'm going to talk to her this week. She's in Regina this week doing a conference. So, you know what? I'll bring that up to her. She's a very influential lady. And, I think I can at least try to contribute to that goal. Because...
well, if we're going to get to the bottom of it, I have some preconceptions already about why there's murdered and missing Indigenous, but I feel like if we're sincere about stopping it, then wouldn't we include the entire population holistically and not just say, okay, this is, and it actually seems like colonialism to me. If you're going to force on feminist models onto murdered and missing Indigenous, isn't that like colonialism, feminist colonialism, saying that you have to take our white person perspective and put that on your problems when that has nothing to do with what's going on with them?
No, I agree. Okay, you know what? Thanks for that total pitch. I'm going to investigate on my end and see what I can bring up.
I'm going to send you some stuff that Cafe's done on this, and we've tried to move this forward. We tried to work with Indigenous, but we've been railroaded, totally blockaded by ideologues, basically. So this, and I'm very, I don't like it that these people that this is happening on their reserves and everything.
No, well, as you know, the ones around us can be quite lively, and we hear about it for, 15 minutes on the news that somebody died out at Hobima or Enoch, and that's it. You never see anything or hear anything about it. You hear about shootings, murders, rapes, missing people, and that's it. The news they get news coverage for 10 minutes, and that's it. And most of them are men. You know what I mean? So, I think that's a big topic that we need to work on in entirety, because we have a fair amount of Aboriginal men that not only just suffer from their own issues, but suffer from the same issues that all Canadian men have in family court. You know what I mean? So, I believe that the government is lying to us. They talk about gender issues. Well, you know, they're really leaving out a big issue here, okay? And if we're going to include everybody, we might as well include all cultures, all religions, and all skin colors. You know what I mean? So
yeah, I think what we need is a more educated public, because right now, if they tell us, oh, these murdered and missing women, we got to spend money on this or whatever, they want to, you know, do the virtual signaling, and they think we're going to vote for that. But maybe if they would not do that, if we would, more of us would be more vocal and complain, like be specific about our complaints about how they're excluding like men and boys from services, and just not fall for it anymore, and stop falling into that trap that we all have, you know, where we all have this, like we all have, like rightly so, have sympathy for women and children when they're female children. There is a I don't know if you know about this, there is a serial killer on the loose around Edmonton. He's been at it for decades, I believe, and he's murdering missing women, indigenous women, indigenous prostitutes. And so and like that's women, and that's not even like anybody, no, it doesn't seem like anybody really knows about that we have this serial killer on the loose in Edmonton. It's been happening for decades. And so so that's women. And so I can imagine if there's a serial killer targeting indigenous men, like, which could likely be so if there's so many of them murdered and missing, like we should have a proper investigation on this.
Yes, I agree. I don't think we could actually have an investigation of the hundreds of years of Indigenous people missing. You know what I mean? And it still continues today, right? So I think smaller groups like us, men and women, need to pull that together in some way. You know what I mean? Like I know it's a really big picture to think about when we're just such a small group right now. But no, I agree. That is a big topic that a lot of people are just pushing it under the carpet. You know what I mean? So I understand why when you see Indigenous outrage on TV or on the news, you know what I mean? I get it. It's not just that one case. It's hundreds of people, and that's why they're angry.
Yeah.
You know?
And like I said, I don't think putting our frameworks like feminism on their problems is helpful in any way. Like it's just kind of saying that this is men hurting women. I don't think that's like patriarchy has nothing to do with it.
Exactly.
It's very. You guys have anything else, like Mike or Lloyd?
No, I was just interested because I didn't know some of the stuff that you two were just talking about. So I was just kind of moving it. And
one way that I've been trying to help is just educate people. And I like, there's a lot of people in Alberta that like to protest, but I focus more on like in my own activism, I suppose. I don't like that word because I feel like that an activist is someone that burns down buildings or burns bras, and I'm like, okay, that's not me. But
see,
I burned my
bras
years ago.
And that's why I like being called an activist, because I think it sounds aggressive and people are going to pay attention to it.
I like to educate. Like I like to organize red pill screenings, like the documentary, and I like to organize get-togethers like this when people can start talking to each other and communicating, and just have discussions like that everybody can watch. And I feel like if there's an educational issue, that might be one way to help. It's just
exactly.
Yeah.
Well, let's just look at Jordan Peterson, for example, and how successful he's being at educating everyone, and people are just eating it up.
Yeah.
And when these activists or social justice warriors come and attack him, they're the ones that look like the assholes, because they are. And he's right. And it brings so many more. And every time he goes to an event, he gets more and more popular, because he doesn't interact with it. He's brilliant. God, I love that man. He's so brilliant.
And like we had a red pill screening in the we tried to schedule one for the University of Calgary, and the feminist ideologues, the feminist clubs on campus got us booted out. But I would have only showed the film to like 10 people because of their protesting. We showed it to like 400. So actually, protesters are our friend.
It's like banning a movie. Exactly. You ban the movie, all of a sudden everybody wants to see it.
Yeah. Like I didn't really know about a lot of books and things until people told me not to watch them, and then I want to go and see it because they tell me I'm not allowed. Yeah. So there are friends, if they tell people not to watch the film or come to our events, like they're just giving us free advertising basically.
Well, I love those change my mind videos as well. If you guys have seen those are pretty entertaining.
Yeah, he's really good.
Louder with Crowder. That's
anybody like that I think sparks a conversation, I think is helpful.
Yeah, definitely. But I missed your question because my feed just froze up. So I don't. I'm scared to comment because I don't know at all what I'm talking about. So
I had asked you and Lloyd if you had any comments or questions or things that you wanted to comment on about the amount of murdered and missing men and how like we've been blocked from having any kind of including them in the investigation. Like if we're gonna get to the bottom of, do you have like a proper investigation of the murdered and missing? Like why have these ideologues blocked? And I don't even understand how people fall for that. Like, why wouldn't they want the entire Indigenous group?
Why wouldn't you want truth?
Yeah. Like, why wouldn't you want all 75 to 80% of the victims to be included in that investigation? If they're mostly male, then this should be a male problem, actually, more than a female problem.
Well, one of the things that would happen, again, because politics and money go hand in hand, right? So when you include men into when you include men into a victim persona, then people may feel bad for them, and then that will redirect money towards those efforts. So other people will lose out on funds. So it's very important that people remain focused on what is currently making money for the feminist movement, for example. Yeah. As an example, or the shelters, right? I did a video on the shelters as well, and in the shelter video that I made, I didn't say women's shelters, or we shouldn't cease funding on women's shelters. I said we should have shelters available for everyone, right? Yeah. It's things that are implied, and a rookie video mistake, because I just started making these, is I have to spell things out for everyone, and I'm not saying that women don't deserve shelters, right? I'm saying everyone should have access to them. Anyhow, yeah.
And if most of I think the funding that we have for domestic abuse shelters right now doesn't even work, like it's not effective. So that's just a huge money. And so if I tell people that's not going to make me popular with certain people. And then also, like, it's really unfortunate that the way that only way people can see this is like a zero-sum game where someone's going to lose. Like, I would like to have a service where I think it would actually cost less money to do it properly, where we actually include people, but then we have appropriate services, like, like we don't if most of the abuse, like, empirically actually that it shows is actually bilateral, and some of it can be resolved with just counseling or something like that.
Right.
And that I actually think that it wouldn't be a zero-sum game, but actually, like, the amount of force and, like, not force, but like the amount of effort it would take to re-educate the entire Western world, that seems very daunting. Like, to spend the money appropriately to but like right now it's a giant waste of money, in my opinion. It doesn't get to the root of the problem.
But because it's a waste of money on numerous ways. But one of the other ones is that money is guaranteed, so it can easily be wasted, right? So there's no accountability, which
is very frustrating.
Yes, definitely.
So the problem just goes on and on and on. And I'm not saying there's never any like very severe cases where there's a unilateral abuser, like a male, and the woman does need a shelter, and she needs like extensive services that's going to totally take her out. But that's not appropriate for every family. Like, if most of it's bilateral, and it just kind of, which is what the evidence shows, then the services right now are not appropriate for the family and does not resolve the issue.
The other thing I think would be important to show people who have been abused is that women get abused, men get abused, have them all in the same group.
Absolutely.
To have those discussions and to talk about it together, so they know that this isn't just a woman thing, it isn't just a man thing. This is it happens to everyone, so we can all work together to resolve it. But working together to resolve it doesn't make money.
That help people like kind of forgive and not demonize the gender that abused them though too. Like if they see that
Exactly.
if that this is like something that wasn't like one gender hates you and they just want to hurt you, like if they can see that this could happen to anybody with any kind of genitals, like this could happen to you, and humanize it, I guess, and then you're not demonizing anybody in particular.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But dehumanizing is effective.
Yeah. Yeah, sometimes I just look at these problems, like the way that our domestic abuse models are, and I think about how much work it took me to get to this point where I sort of get it. I still admit my ignorance, but it just is scary that about this much corruption and waste of money, and I just wonder, like, what can we do to help? So I'm gonna try with this men's shelter. I'm very concerned about the legal issues, as I brought up, but I don't know. It's not going to be easy.
Yeah,
Well,
that's
there's
going to be a tough one to get around. Is there's going to be men that aren't going to want to leave their children with with the abuser, because they could end up becoming the abused, or it could very quickly be turned around against the man. But these are I'm hoping that once the facility is in full function and people start utilizing it, that it won't. I'm hoping that it won't take very long to start to change that
mentality
process. Yeah, the mentality and the process. Because it should not be like, it's very backward that it's wrong for one parent to take the children away from a bad environment, but it's okay for the other one to do it. It'd be interesting to find out, what the law would say if it was, two male partners, and both fathers. Obviously, you took the child or children away. Like, was he looked at as a father or parent? Is it still illegal or is it not illegal? I wonder how they would handle something like that.
Well, I feel like in those circumstances, like we can't leverage that as much as we can, because they just get blamed for being gay, and they say that's what's causing that whole issue. Like,
yeah.
And I believe the research has showed that actually there's worse, like battering. Like there's a huge crisis in the lesbian community for domestic abuse. And one of our mandates at especially at Cafe Edmonton, is we're really interested in helping these other marginalized groups that don't have appropriate services. Like, it shouldn't, like, if we're going to help with domestic abuse, like, we're the Cafe, Canadian Association for Equality, like, that means that everybody counts. And so we're hoping that with a men's shelter that we could start having some services or facilitate that too, so that like we would actually include if there's a crisis in the lesbian community, like I said, it's not going to be punitive. Like, how can we help there too? I mean, if they have a crisis there, and a lot of the reason why they're not getting help is because they don't fit in the model, this feminist model, this patriarchal model. So there's this whole community that's been erased, and they need services. And like, if they have, that's what I mean. Like, you start off with this wrong premise of feminism, of patriarchy, and it's implemented, top down, with no regard for facts, because the ideologues, these religious ideologues, say so. It just has these very nasty repercussions on the individual and on families, and we're not able to help people. But battling these, entrenched ideologues is not very easy. And so I guess education would be the first place to start. It's like, educate more people.
That's the reason why I chose to go the route that I did, is because everything is about money, right? And so once you understand how the system works, then you can go around it that way. But what I've also learned is nobody knows nobody has no idea who I am. So when I come and I approach people and tell them what we could do, they don't believe me, because who are you, right?
We'll
shadow figure.
Yeah, we'll plug your credentials on our Cafe channel.
Sure. Well, I wouldn't mind talking to you more about it before you do that too. So.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so we've been going at it for a bit now, so I'm going to cut us off today. Any last thoughts from any of my friends here?
No, I'm good.
We'll have to have another hangout sometime soon, and we'll have more discussion. So I'll forward all the links, and I'll forward all that information about missing and murdered Indigenous men and what an issue it actually is. So that we have, and I'll
Please
post
do.
it on the YouTube as well. Yes. Any last thoughts from my friends here?
Well, I'm going to continue thinking about the questions that we came up with. How to get people to utilize the shelters, and I'll see what I can come up with, and maybe I'll put it out on the group chats as well, and see what if we can come up with some good input.
Yeah, they're not easy, so I don't expect like an answer today, but we got to put the questions out there, and at least people will start contemplating them.
Well, exactly, and I mean, it gets people thinking about it, and eventually we'll come up with some, maybe a short list of good paths to try.
That would be really helpful. Thank you so much.
Yeah, I'll put out a few questions on the Father's Rights Alberta especially, or I'll get some of my admin guys to jump in there. I'm sure they've already seen this video. So, yeah, we definitely should do some polling. You know what I mean? Get some of the guys to talk anonymously to us, you know what I mean? And then we can reflect, because even though I'm very active and passionate about this cause, I am not a male. We need to see what's going to make them comfortable, because like you said, it's not necessarily men are about mushy and talk about their feelings, but if you give them something constructive and normal to do, and through a therapeutic way, then maybe they can move on with their lives and hopefully with their children in a sense. Although I do believe that you guys help and focus women on trying to revitalize themselves to be better parents, because I'm also all about educating men who choose not to want to be in their kids' life because of the pressures. And then I want to educate them and tell them that it's for the benefit of the kids, you know what I mean? That they need both parents, that whole 50-50 equality thing, right? So, anyways, I'm going to work on that this week, and
we're gonna take a break, but we're gonna have more discussion. Like, this is not the end of it. We have more to say, but we had some big questions today, and I think that this, it takes time. Like, I need my diffuse mode to kind of muddle around things, and then I come back when I have more thoughts, and then I can ask more questions that I've been thinking about.
Cool. All right.
Yeah. Thanks, guys.
Thank you very much for having me. I sincerely appreciate it.
Yeah, I enjoyed myself. Thank you so much for coming.
All right. Thank you.
Take care, ladies.
Have a good night.
Bye now. Bye.